Welcome again to the Lead2Xceed chat with me, Henry Baye. In the last two episodes, we chatted about enterprise leadership, what it means, its importance, the benefits, and yet why it is so difficult to practice. In this episode, we will share a few tips on how to go about building enterprise leaders and enterprise leadership organizations. So, how do we go about building such leaders with an enterprise mindset? First of all, let me suggest that this has to be the goal of not only the enterprise as a whole, but mentors, coaches, and indeed leadership development organizations. Building enterprise leadership has to be tackled at three levels, I'll suggest. The first one is tackling it at the executive or senior level. It is not unusual to find that CEOs who have led a particular business unit in the past tend to always lean into support that business unit because that comes to them readily, and that's what they understand. It is, however, still easier for leaders occupying positions like CEOs to model enterprise leadership behaviors. This is because by the very nature of their responsibility, they should be somewhat agnostic of individual units and aim for the whole. The real challenge, though, for CEOs and leaders at the top of the organization is just how to have all their C-suite executives around the table model this behavior. So here are some tips. First of all, the head of the organization must model the right behavior. CEOs must lead with firm enterprise leadership principles and must model exemplary decision-making that reflects this. They must assign tasks and projects that ensure that leaders are not only limited to dealing with their teams. These cross-functional team opportunities ensure also that employees see the leadership team as one team. Secondly, they must create a common platform of principles for the team. Typically, one would expect that every team of C-suite leaders will have some kind of charter that underpins their leadership as a team. These principles should be guided jealously as a team possession, and each person must be a guardian to make sure all of them live by them. They must agree what the acid test of every decision must be and how they will hold each other accountable. They must check in on delivery of strategic goals and measure performance in a way that reflects that delivery. This means that leadership teams must have deliberate meetings to check in and align to the overall delivery of the goals. This means various people must own various aspects of the delivery, and that does not have to relate to only their units. CEOs must make it a point to capture how enterprise leaders have contributed beyond their unit goals to the achievement of the overall goals of the organization. At the individual level, building enterprise leadership mindset depends largely on the individual leader and begins with some self-awareness. Leaders who are self-aware and authentic tend to find enterprise leadership an easier thing to do. So how do leaders go about building their own enterprise leadership skills? The first thing is to seek to know about the entire organization through reading widely and asking open-ended questions. Secondly, unless otherwise proven, always assume that people have genuine intent as leaders. Talk directly to them rather than assume that they are off to something mischievous. Thirdly, celebrate the success of other leaders genuinely and openly. Appreciate other leaders for the role they play to support you as well as the entire organization. Leaders must also make habit of the question, how can I help? This is one of the most powerful questions leaders can ask. The question should be asked whether or not the target of the question is in the leader's unit. Leaders must invest their time and effort in developing talent across the organization. They should not limit talent development to only their own units. And finally, leaders must set themselves apart to be a real example for genuinely seeking the good of the whole. They must be champions of their colleague leaders and champions of the entire organization, especially outside the organization, and not only champions of their units. The third dimension of building enterprise leadership is across the organization. I've talked about at the C-suite level, I've talked about the individual level. but there is also the need to build it across the organization. This third level at which enterprise leadership has to be solutioned is where it is across the organization, and leaders must seek to embed the enterprise leadership culture across every unit of the organization. Emerging leaders, as you know, will eventually become leaders. And so there must be a real effort to ensure that the next level of the talent are also building this enterprise leadership mindset. I'm sure you all have heard about the well-known interaction between President Kennedy and the janitor at NASA, where President Kennedy was visiting NASA's space station. He saw a janitor walking and carrying a broom. He interrupted the tour and walked over to the man. He introduced himself as President Kennedy and then asked, "What are you doing?" The answer shocked everybody. He said, "Well, Mr. President," the janitor responded, "I'm helping to put a man on the moon." This story reinforces why it is important that the culture of the organization must be built and constantly reinforced to promote an enterprise culture where everybody, irrespective of their unit, is thinking about the whole. Leaders must also show their teams how to model the behaviors that represent enterprise leadership mindset in their decisioning and their day-to-day actions. They must also organize their teams to be involved with projects beyond their sphere and make sure they provide them help and support and provide them resources on how to get involved in other parts of the organization. So clearly, from these three charts that we have had on enterprise leadership, it is such an important leadership mindset that leaders must make it an integral part of how they build the culture of the organization and how they develop their people. So as I bring this chat to a close, as always, do you have a leadership question that you would like answered? Have you heard anything in this video that has triggered a question on your mind? Is there any thought that you would like us to explore some more? If you answered yes to any of these questions, by all means, shoot a question at us through this channel or via the email on the screen, and we'll be happy to come back to you. And don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment on this channel. And remember to hit the notification button so that next time we post new content, you'll be the first to know. This has been me, Henry Baye, on the Lead2Xceed chat. Lead2Xceed, inspiring leaders, multiplying impact.